Good evening, everybody. I want to welcome you wholeheartedly to our presentation tonight called From Housing to Home, Resettling Afghan Families in Newburyport. And as the Huddle does, we always start our meetings with a moment of silence together so that we together can enter this room space as one. And so I invite you, however you choose, whether your eyes are open or shut, just to let us breathe together, because we are one community. We are here for one purpose, to have a conversation, a dialogue about solutions. And our breath is a way of simply coming together as one. So I welcome you. Tonight, we will be talking with 5 experts on the topic of from housing to home. We are at a next step moment here in Newburyport. It is an important conversation that involves a deep look into what is so important to us here, expanding our community, amplifying diversity, and truly becoming an inclusive city. But it's also a conversation that must have reality and experience in it as well. We are so grateful to your 5 voices tonight, all of you, with enormous amounts of experience and understanding of this challenge of finding affordable housing for the Afghan families that have resettled in our area. It is the Huddle's privilege to welcome our speakers and to all of you this evening. Thank you to Mayor Sean Reardon, Reverend Rebecca Bryan, Father Jared Mercer, Anca Moraru, and Suzanne Cameron for wholeheartedly agreeing to speak to us tonight. And you really did. I know you're all incredibly busy all the time right now, and to come and speak to us is a great gift to the community of Newburyport. So I have my timer here, and we're going to jump right in with Anca Moraru. So Anca Moraru is Chief Program Officer for IINE, the International Institute of New England, which is the major refugee resettlement organization in our area. I had no idea, but Anca has worked there since 2008, almost 15 years. She began as a case manager, working directly with newly arrived families. She couldn't be better qualified for the job she has now. Moved into the Director of Resettlement and Quality Improvement, and finally to Managing Director of the Boston site before becoming CPO. And Anca, it was a privilege to talk to you a couple of weeks ago because you are so refreshing, you are so reality, so forthright, and so I'm just going to jump right in with our questions. The challenges seem formidable, and so can you begin tonight with a brief sort of overview of how things are actually going with IINE right now? Like, I know that you're receiving more families than you ever have before. How's it going? How are you doing?
First, I want to say hello, everyone. Hello, Paula, and thank you so much for having me. So, yes, as you said, it's been a struggle. It's still a struggle because we never resettled so many people in such a short amount of time. We ended up resettling 488 individuals between October 17 and February 17th. We used to receive around 600 to 700 arrivals for all 3 sites in a period of 12 months. So we are not used to such an immense burden on the system, on our staff, and we were just not ready. We were not ready because everything came up so fast. All of a sudden we received notifications that the Afghans are coming and that you're going to start receiving anywhere from 10 to 50 a week, and you need to prepare for them. Obviously, housing was the main challenge. It's still the main challenge. How can you find housing? How can you rent and prepare apartments so fast? And I think we're still struggling with that as we go forward, because we are starting to see phase 2 of Afghans. We are supposed to receive another 150 Afghans starting probably next week.
Oh my gosh, Anca. Oh, wow. So what you and I talked about was, let's get real. These are large families. We are a fairly affluent community. Our rents are high. How realistic, let's start it right off, is it for us to feel that we can keep these families in the Newburyport greater area?
That's a very fair question. I think right now every community is challenging and we need to come up with creative solutions. Everywhere that we look is a shortage of housing. Everywhere the affordable housing is not as available as it used to be. At least I feel like in Newburyport, the families have a huge support network that some of our families do not have. And I think another thing that I want to mention is that, this is tough to acknowledge, but a lot of our refugee clients typically start their lives in US at a poverty level. And it's up to us to help them get out of there and help them by supplementing their rent for a while until they can start working, until they become self-sufficient. Otherwise, I think especially for families who are really big as the ones that are in Newburyport, I think it's going to be very hard to become self-sufficient on their own without our help.
And so in your, learned and experienced opinion, is it, I don't want to say, is it unrealistic, but yes. I mean, do these families, in your opinion, would they like to stay where they have landed, or do you feel that they want to be in established Afghan communities, perhaps elsewhere? Do you get a sense of that from them?
So I think entering an established community of Afghans right now is wishful thinking. It's not realistic. We looked and we tried in the communities, but either we couldn't find apartments available or landlords are expressing hesitation to rent to refugees since they don't have a stable income, they don't have a credit score or employment. So most landlords find renting to refugees very risky, and therefore we are putting clients wherever we can find apartments and when landlords want to work with us. So I can say that really we placed Afghans where there is an Afghan community. We place Afghans where there is housing available.
Oh, that's the key, isn't it? Wow. And where are you going to place the 150 new ones coming in?
Again, wherever we can find housing. So it's
so quick.
as I said, very challenging. All we do is call landlords and try to make relationships with landlords, and especially landlords who understand our work, want to help refugees and immigrants, and they're not afraid that, I don't know, maybe 2 months after we rent an apartment, the refugees will stop paying rent. Right? So there are landlords who want to take a chance on us and our clients, and they want to help. So we have few landlords right now who already rented to us and they are willing to give us more apartments. And there's a lot of cold calls. We just find landlords, pick up the phone and try to convince them to rent to our clients.
So if the families are scattered around when they finally find permanent housing, then it sounds like it's going to be harder for them to get together with each other because not everybody has licenses yet, for sure. No,
right.
Or cars, or so it could, I mean, housing is kind of a critical ingredient in a community forming for them.
Right. And I think a lot of Afghans that we've resettled, they're very resourceful. Some of them already have their driver's license and now they're saving to get cars. They find ways to get together either by having someone who's been here for a while to drive them around. We had a lot of Afghans who had parties and had other families come into their house and sleep over and have a big feast just to enjoy their new community. And also I would like to say that I feel like the Newbury families found a community within themselves, and within the community they resettled them. I feel like the community in Newburyport stepped up in a way that I didn't see any of other communities that I work with. So you were there from the beginning of their resettlement process, and you will be there for a long time with them. So I think they feel like you are part of their families and their community.
So do we, and that's why we want to keep them. It feels like this opportunity for us as a greater Newburyport community to literally experience more diversity than we've been able to in the past. Just, you know, having 50 or 60 Afghan people in our community permanently would change the face of us. And I think most of us on this call want that. We really want that. So I guess to finish with you, I would like to ask, like, if there's hope, if where there's a will, there's a way, right? I mean, we still have a few months. There could be extensions on, you know, the 6-month staying in church, you know, regulations. You know, maybe we can make this happen. Maybe there's a way. Do you feel hopeful about Newburyport being able to keep?
Yes, definitely. I feel like as I said, we received so much support. The clients received so much support. There is no way we're not going to make it work.
So nice. Well, that's a great way to end. Thank you, Anca, very much.
Thank you.
So, my friends, next we're going to talk with two people who couldn't know more about this, and that is Reverend Rebecca Bryan and Father Jared Mercer. I mean, between your two churches, there's more than 30 people that you have. And so let me introduce you first. Reverend Rebecca Bryan, whose congregation Friends Religious Society Unitarian Universalist Church is housing one family, and Father Jared Mercer, whose congregation St. Paul's Episcopal Church is housing 2 families. And I have a feeling that on this call tonight, there are a lot of volunteers in both of your organizations, which is wonderful. Reverend Rebecca serves as a member of the City of Newburyport's Diversity, Equity, Inclusion Task Force, among very many other leadership roles. She's the first female settled minister at FRS and began in 2018. And Father Jared Mercer, I've looked up your bio a couple of times, and I just love it because well, for one thing, you've been the rector here at St. Paul's for just a couple of years. You came during the pandemic after more than 10 years in Europe with your family, where you earned a doctorate in theology from Oxford University. Father Jared is an author. I believe his 4th book is about to come out. And an article welcoming him to this community in our newspaper, he said, "I'm looking forward to finding new ways of connecting with the community throughout and beyond the pandemic." And I thought, well, I guess that has been accomplished. You certainly have figured out ways of doing that. So as Reverend Rebecca and I spoke last week about tonight, she so wisely advised that there are more questions than answers, and that we don't know what we don't know. And so I'd like to start with both of you by asking, you know, how's it going? How is it going with your families? Maybe Reverend Rebecca, you could start.
Sure, yeah, I would be very happy to. And also Pastor Chris Nye is on the call here as well. I see, who is also, they're having a family there at Central Congregational. So yeah. And then there is another family as well. So there are in total the 5 families that are living here in Newburyport at this time. And it is going amazingly well. I'll be brief, though I could talk a really long time about this. You know, Paula, you started by saying we have 5 experts, and I started writing down people's names that are involved, closely involved, as I was looking, and I'm at 17. And that's not even just the people I know who care and have donated. And I'm talking people who are showing up weekly, who are right. And I can't thank them all, or I'll use all my time, but this is all of our efforts. There's no experts. We're just all coming together. And that's what's so amazing about it to me. Our family is well, very, very, very well. It's a family of 9 children from the ages of 3 to 19, and the parents, and they're living in the parish hall right next to our church building. It was renovated in, I think, 19 days or something, renovated, but made into a beautiful home. They're doing really well. And I'm just going to take a moment, and then I'll let Jared say more, but
plenty of time.
Yeah, so I was with the father this morning, and about maybe a month ago, I had asked him, because people were asking, well, what do they want? What do the families want? We want to know what the families want. And about a month ago or so, I had asked him that, and he had said to me, I don't know, right? And in the course of 1 month, as the kids have started track, preparing for soccer, have gotten together with the other multicultural families, the mothers are going to the women's group, he's studying for his driver's license, is possibly going to be getting a job along with some of the other fathers. And I'm smiling at my friends and colleagues. I'm not doing this. I could tell you names. That was a month ago. Today, I was with him this morning, and he on his own said to me, this is where we want to be. He said, this is home. He said, and again, I can't quote him nor exactly say it, but his English is improving so much, and still, right, but he was saying, we have family and friends, they don't have food. We need food, there's food, and he's talking about people, I think Anca was referencing this to a certain degree, that the situations that these families are brought into vary, and they are incredibly aware and grateful that they're being welcomed here, their needs are being met. And I think with the prospects, as I mentioned, of driver's license, a job, it's becoming more and more their home. And I wish I could have recorded his voice when he was sharing with me why this is where they want to be. And it was remarkable, even in that period of that month. So I don't know. I think even if we can offer longer temporary housing, a year or two, while they get themselves, completely acclimated, to think of moving those children again and pulling them out of a place where they're making connections and learning English and forming friendships, and say, now you're going to go, over here. And perhaps that's an answer, and we can figure the long term out over that time if we could find rentals. Maybe it's not from A to Z, but they're doing well because of everybody in this
That's
community.
wonderful. So we're going to return to that, but I'd love to hear from Father Jared how his families are doing. I think you have 19 people over in your church. Is that right, Father?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, 19. So between two families, family of 10, family of 9. So yeah, it's a full house, and not even a house at that, but a full church classroom, bedroom made into bedroom spaces or whatever. But no, they are also just, it's very, so I want to say surprising or shocking, but I mean more just moving and touching to see actually how resilient and remarkable humans, that they are with everything they've been through, and that they are able to smile. Sometimes I feel like I can't smile some days, but I've never seen a day. I see them every day, and they're always smiling. So the kids, in particular, I think, are really thriving in the schools, and our schools have been incredible. I mean, the way they've stepped up, really amazing. And like Reverend Rebecca was saying, playing sports, getting into the sports now, and making friends and making connections, going to birthday parties, it's very moving to see how, in the midst of everything, and it's difficult. Like, it doesn't mean it's easy for them. Obviously, it's incredibly difficult. Even just the language barrier and all of that is incredibly difficult, much less everything else that they've had to go through and are going through. And so, but it is great and to see. And then the family at Central, they are actually, so the mother in one of the families at St. Paul's, the family now at Central Congregational Church is her brother and sister-in-law, who were going to be sent to Georgia for some odd reason rather than here with their family. And I think one day, is that right, Anca? We were able to get in touch and secure their transfer to here, because they were going to be sent to Georgia. And on the day they were going to be sent, we got official word that they were actually changing their plans and sending them here. And Pastor Chris Nye, who's on the call, I think, said that the biggest miracle of all of this is a Congregationalist church making a decision and one night rather than 7 years. So, so that was a big move. And they, they come around and sometimes even stay the night, with the family at St. Paul's, and they spend a lot of time together. So it's great to see that sort of.
That's really nice, really nice. And, I wanted to return to where Reverend Rebecca was going. And I'll start with her on this as well, because what we talked about was what these families want. And like any family, they want a safe place to live. They want gainful employment. They want good schools for their children. And I guess what I want to talk about a little bit is we have a responsibility to them in a sense. They've come into our communities. We are providing what we can for them now. And we want to help provide them with those things that every family wants to have. And I don't even know what the question is, but we not owe them that, but it's part of what we should be doing. Don't you think, Reverend Rebecca, is helping them to accomplish what any family would want?
Yeah, I guess yes, Paul, yeah, yes. What I would say to that is that, we've all made a commitment, and it wasn't just to get them on an airplane here, right? Imagine showing up as they did with a blue bag, each person. They are wonderful, they're intelligent, they're just like us. And I think that our relationship is deeper than, it's not transactional. These are human beings and people who we have a relationship with as individuals and as a community. And to me, wouldn't we do all we could for each other? And wouldn't we want to help everyone, maximize who they are and their potential? So this is not, to me, right, it's relational. It's not a transaction. It's not something that it's like, check off these 4 things, 6 months later, good, did that, we're good people. These are real. And I know others feel this way because I see your faces and I know you. And I know the families feel this way. This isn't a joke or a game for them. This is their home and where they're finding safety and recovering.
Yeah.
And
So Father Jared, do you have any ideas?
Yeah, we do. Yeah. I mean, I think there are lots of ideas there. And I think there are potential ways of making them come about. I mean, there's brilliant. I mean, Suzanne Cameron is amazing. Who's on this call who I've talked to, and the stuff that some other people in the city and the mayor and others in the city, some of the things we've been able to concoct as possible, realities are quite extraordinary. And then there's just finding rentals and stuff too. There might be homeowners and things on this call who could have a property to rent or something. But I want to add to what Reverend Rebecca was saying, which is so important as well. I think it's really important how we see ourselves and the families involved in this together, that it isn't about exchange and transaction. And it's about relationships. It's also about what sort of people and what sort of society we want to decide to be. It's not just charity, it's about justice, right? It's about justice. And when one person lives in poverty anywhere, we live in an unjust society, right? And so I think it's really about what kinds of humans are we, what kind of human society are we creating to make space and make available the kinds of, secure and flourishing life that you were talking about, Paula. It's a matter not just of charity or a little bit of generosity, or like Reverend Rebecca said, sort of pat on the back after we get our job done, or take some things off a list. It's about, do we actually want to live as people of justice and peace and goodness and beauty and truth, or not? And that doesn't mean that everything we want to do becomes magically possible. As you said, that, it's that, we have to do what we can. And we don't know exactly how it's going to end up as far as, with the long-term housing and everything else. But doing what we can in this situation for these people, for anyone in need, but these ones are here in our community.
Yes, these ones are here. And it's almost as if on the back of such hardship is such an opportunity for us. And I think that everybody in this community recognizes this as an opportunity to live into the greatness that we want to be, the diverse community, the welcoming community, the fair and just community. It's almost as if we've been, through their hardship, we've been given something on a platter, really. I mean, it's our opportunity, and it's front and center right here. And so I guess I want to segue to, because the huddle is, what we try to do is educate people, but our goal is to activate them. And we're all sort of dying to know, like, what can we do? And I know Suzanne is going to speak to that because she has some really great ideas, but I'm sure that you both do too. So do you have any good ideas for us? What can we do to help? People are writing to us all the time at the huddle, like, I've got a stove, is it time yet? Do they have their own apartment? Right into money, and where does it go, and so forth. So help us with that, if you would, please.
Yeah, I mean, so we do need opportunities for the physical properties themselves, and as people know of or have properties that could be available for rent, even potentially there are ideas about even potential for sale, and what might be possible around that. That is really important. And I think some people have I think showed concern around that, about whether, well, they can't just, if they have a property to rent, it's not like they can just donate it. Well, no, we're not asking them to like, there's money, like, the rent will get paid. And so that's not an issue. It's just about an issue. The issue is the supply is very low, and, and the demand is extremely high. And we have, 33 people out of the 47 are in an apartment from the West Newbury Congregationalist Church. We have 33 people who now are in that very small supply.
Will be taking any more families? Do you think, in the new sort of surge coming in, is Newburyport, Reverend Rebecca, planning on taking any more on?
Well, I can only speak for First Religious Society, but we wouldn't be able to, certainly, and at this point. I mean, the family is in that place, in the space we have, right?
Yes.
So I can only respond as it is right now. But.
And do you have some ideas for our people of what you need, or what you can see us being able to help with?
So, yeah, Paul, I mean, and I love that people want to help. And yes, there are, I guess a few things that I would say. One of them is to think about what your gifts and resources are, and then talk to us about if they might be helpful. And that might sound like an odd way to think about this, but they're very interesting things. But yet everything, someone was sharing with me, were ready to get their hair colored, right? Well, I was like, yeah, if I'd been in Afghanistan for 5 months or whatever it's been, I would have been asking for that a while ago. So all of how we live, if you watch your own self, how do you live? What are you doing? How are you spending your time? All of those things. And though there is, there are subsidies that they're receiving, and they do hope to start working, it's expensive to have the sized families that they do. So whether it's something that you could offer as far as a service, or inviting local businesses to do small fundraisers, which I know, what was the exercise place. Anyway, I'm so sorry.
Natural High? No.
Fuel.
Fuel, yeah. So,
right.
And a jeweler in town donated watch batteries, when they needed watch batteries. So again, I think thinking about that, continuing to learn ourselves, when there's the community iftar coming up, to go if you can, but learn about their culture as well. And if you have children and grandchildren and young people in your lives, to support that learning, is another, I think, important part of it. And it's been a little while now. And so as some funds have continued to need to be used, they are decreasing. And we haven't done any large outright fundraising, but to be known that we have had to use funds for certain things. So much has been donated. And that's always very welcome. As we're getting on their feet.
Just to sort of complete this segment, is there going to be an opportunity coming up? Like, I'm dying to meet an Afghan person. I see them on the street and I want to like go grab them and hug them because they're being, pretty well protected, their privacy right now. Do you think that there will be like an opportunity for us general public people to actually meet them?
So I'll answer and then probably Jared would. I think one thing that's important, and this is something you could do to be helpful, is that each family's circumstances are different. For the family that's staying in our parish hall, they have safety concerns, serious safety concerns for their family back in Afghanistan. And so we are honoring what they are comfortable with and what they're asking. And it causes them great distress to think that the visibility or awareness of them or any kind of social media or anything like that were to get back to Afghanistan, their families are at risk of their life. So I think that's just an important thing to understand. We do hope to have something in the spring. And I'm also, again, we're doing that in partnership with them as they're ready. Right.
Yeah.
So
Perfect.
Jared.
Yeah, I'd say exactly the same thing. And they have the families at St. Paul's have the exact same concerns and that sort of thing. On the flip side of that, I mean, they are meeting people in the same ways that we do in our society, kids at school or parents, of other kids or, interacting with other people, just like we do. I mean, if we, I moved to town not even almost 2 years ago now, and year and 9 months or 10 months, whatever. And, I met people periodically now, and I know a lot more people than when I first arrived, but I didn't have a sort of like on parade, like come and meet, or whatever. And we can't really do that just like we wouldn't do that with any of us. We can't really do that with them in the same way.
Right.
For some of the reasons that Reverend Rebecca was saying, but there are opportunities to meet them in regular life, of course, and they are incredibly open and kind and warm people. They would meet you and ask you for tea and a meal like immediately. Like, so it's not that they're hands off to people, but there is a certain protection of privacy thing.
I think that's really critical to understand. And so I thank you both, and please stand by because there will be chats. And I want to remind people that we'll have an active chat session after all the speakers have gone. And Karen Trowbridge, thank you so much. The chair of the Newburyport Democratic City Committee is sitting in for Debbie Hart-Klein tonight. Thank you so much, Karen. So we are going to now segue into sort of the municipal parts of this and really let's talk housing, Suzanne. That's what I want to do with you. So first I'm going to introduce you, and that is, I was deeply impressed with your resume and your bio. Suzanne Cameron is co-chair and trustee of the Newburyport Affordable Housing Trust, which is funded through Newburyport CPC. If nobody knows what that is, it's the Community Preservation Committee that gives out money for important things in our community. She serves on the board of directors of Metro Housing Boston and Roof Overhead Collaborative, and is a steering committee member of the Mel King Institute of Community Building, to name but a few of her deep experiences in professional community building and equitable housing. Couldn't be more perfect for tonight. The Affordable Housing Trust advocates and supports affordable housing and is responsible for 2 rental assistance programs. I didn't know that. They help folks get through rental bumps, help with first, last, and security deposits, and are now in the brand new conversation on the Housing Committee for Resettlement. So Suzanne, when you and I spoke, it was striking to me that you reiterated what all of our speakers would agree with, which is we don't know what we don't know. So there are so many factors in finding a permanent home here in Newburyport. Can you speak to your experience on the Resettlement Committee to start? Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Paula, for having me. And thank you all for being here tonight. This is such a great conversation. I am so impressed, as others have said, that the community has come together to have these really tough conversations. This is not an easy task for any of us, even those of us who have been in housing for a long time. Look, housing is, I say, housing is my love language. I love it. I love it. And why do I love it? Because it's not just about bricks and mortar. It's not just about heat. It's not about any of that. It's about being home. When, in any given crisis, when COVID hit 2+ years ago, where did you need to be? You needed to be home, right? And home means something to everybody. And so I don't want that to get lost, that we're not just looking for a bunch of sticks and bricks for people to live in. We're looking for their home, right? So, yeah. Look, we have in the city, and I do want to say that I'm not speaking as a trustee, and I'm not speaking for anyone. The opinions I'm giving you tonight are my own through my own experience. So we have a lot of issues here in Newburyport. We have a supply issue. We have a huge affordability issue. We have homeless families. We have families doubled up. We have kids who are hungry going to our schools. We have older Newburyporters aging out of their homes who can't afford to live in their homes anymore and have nowhere to go. And so we, at the Housing Trust, we look at all of that, and we're trying to solve for all of this. And so this brand new to all of us, refugee resettlement humanitarian effort is something brand new. And we're trying to just, plow through and come up with solutions that are going to work, mainly to get folks into a home, into a safe, affordable, warm, clean home, right? That's the bottom line. We don't, we talk about, purchasing a place, which seems unbelievable. Jared had a lovely parishioner who approached Roof Overhead for us to look at her home that she's about to sell as a potential property for Roof Overhead to own, to house as a resettlement house. And which I was so touched just by the fact that she came forward and asked us to come and look at it. Of course, we didn't get the deal. It sold for over asking, cash, no inspection, the usual, right? So this is what we're up against here. And so I think, what we're trying to do right at this point is get creative and really start thinking out of the box a little bit.
And what does that look like? That's like, who are you talking to at this point? And don't you think it's a cultural change as much as, like, couldn't we be talking to landlords about actually not charging so much? Or I don't know, is that totally fantasy?
Yeah, that's a tough one. It's tough. And, we also have this, and for better or for worse, and I don't mean to offend anybody, but this Airbnb issue, right? In our beautiful city, and people want to visit. And so a lot of these units are being rented by the night, by the week, by the month, right, to visitors, and they're making huge piles of money. And I'm not saying that that's a bad thing. I'm just saying that's our reality right now. There are corporations purchasing homes in the city that are winning deals over regular homeowners that have means. They're just, if you need to apply for a mortgage, you don't even have a chance. Their cash buyers are coming through. So anyway, it's tough. So to answer your question, I want to say that one of the interesting things we're talking about at Roof Overhead, and for those of you who don't know, Roof Overhead provides housing to families at risk of homelessness. And our service area is Newburyport, Amesbury, and Salisbury. We currently have 2 units in Newburyport and 2 units in Amesbury. We still don't have one in Salisbury, but we're always looking. This is the way this works is a family will come in. We give them enough time to get on their feet, get proper employment, education, get settled, just get grounded and have a place to call home until they're ready to launch, right? So it's just like no one's pushing them out. They take as much time as they need. And it works. It's a great model. What we'd like to do after these conversations, and this is what I love about this, is just like all of these wonderful minds coming together. We are talking now about creating a separate program at Roof Overhead that would be specifically for refugee resettlement families. And so for us to purchase a home, as we have done for regular, not want to say regular, that's a terrible thing to say, but families at risk of homelessness in Newburyport, Salisbury, and Amesbury, we would designate this program and have these homes in perpetuity as resettlement homes. And it'll be a completely separate program. So we're not muddling the needs, you know what I mean, in these two categories. This would be specifically for this purpose. And to have a resettlement house in our community is such a great, I think a great,
awesome.
yeah. So, right. So now we just need to find something.
Do you have money? Does Roof Overhead have money? I mean, like, who buys these things?
Yeah, we have little money. We obviously, we have some capabilities because our properties do quite well. We're not making a ton of money, but we're not losing any money. And the appreciation, right, in the city has really helped the units that we have. So we have a lot of equity in our units at this point. So we work in combination with, state, federal, and local funding partners. And the banks, we've had mortgages. So, there are ways of getting a deal done. We just need, to find in this market, and I'm just going to go back to this, a patient seller who really believes in this mission, who can work with us. It's really very easy to come, it's easy when you get multiple offers and 3 of them are cash and they're all over asking, that it makes it tough for the nonprofit community to really engage.
Yes. Yeah. And Suzanne, are you working with individual Afghan families, or as sort of the whole issue itself? You're sort of overreaching, or individual, or both?
Yeah. No, we're just looking right now to solve for any one of our families here, right? We'd be so happy to find something. We've coming up with ideas. We think the next logical step would be rental housing, and even, partnering with some of our more well-known landlords in the city who might have vacant units, and, getting back to, sort of this, when you're underwriting a family who is not earning yet and doesn't have a credit report, is credit invisible here, right? In the United States, we have this, what do you want to call it? This ability to fundraise and leverage the fundraising that's happening among these groups to help subsidize the rental payment. So really, to the landlord, there's zero risk. We talked to Jared and Rebecca about perhaps the churches could become the lease. They would be leasing the property on behalf of the families and then subletting them to the families. So really just kind of thinking out of the box a little bit and trying to make this work. I don't think it's impossible. I think it's just finding the right properties and a willing landlord or seller.
The family that came to the Congregational Church in West Newbury already, like, their family came in and within days they were in an apartment. And one of our well-known landlords, I understand, is their landlord.
Smaller family, right? Easier to place, much easier.
Smaller family, and the organization raised enough money, I think, for at least 6 months rent which is what they need. So So what I'd like to end with you is literally, and a lot of these ideas I hope that we will get back to in the chat, or at least put back into the chat so people can take them away. But what can we do? So if we know of a house, if we know of a landlord, etc., could you give us some guidelines about action items?
Yeah, I mean, talk it up, and I know it's not easy, but it's not impossible either. I want to stress that even if any of you have a unit or, a home, or know of somebody who with a vacant home, it's not, I don't want folks to think it's a risky proposition. It doesn't need to be. We can solve for the risk, right? And it's really just about getting creative and getting it's about finding the right partner to bring people home.
So when they find a home, there will continue to be support. For example, if somebody did have a large apartment, but if language is the barrier, there would be translators to help and so forth. Correct? Is that, are we going to support these families for as long as it takes them to get comfortable? Is that a valid question?
Is that for me?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. And it looks
Jared,
like Jared can pop in too, because we've all had this conversation together. So go ahead, Jared.
Yeah. No, I just taking a bit of pressure off there on Suzanne for me, or Reverend Rebecca, or Chris, or one of the ones from the family stance. So the answer to that is because we're the ones working with IINE and sort of have that responsibility. The answer is yes. Yeah. The answer is that we're totally in. Totally in, and to support them in every way we can and bring them to self-sufficiency and a new life here.
Thank you. So thank you so much, Suzanne, and stand by. We're going to turn now to Mayor Sean Reardon, who I understand has come to the meeting. Hi, Mayor Sean, where are you?
Paula, sorry I was a little late. Very busy day.
Oh, that's all right.
But very happy to be here, and thank you to the Huddle for putting this together. This is great.
Thank you for being here. And, I know your first quarter as mayor must have your head completely spinning. So thank you for, you've always been such a great support for the Huddle, and we really, really appreciate that. So it was really nice to talk to you on Monday a little in advance of this, and to understand, for somebody like myself who's not in housing and all of that, like Suzanne mentioned, there are many, many families in this community that need affordable housing, and now we have a refugee settlement situation on top of that. So it's a delicate course, that it's kind of complicated. The needs are great, and so I guess please give us, if you will, what is the city doing right now, and what is the city doing right now? That would be a great place to start.
Yeah, and I just I want to thank Suzanne for all her comments right before me, because it really highlights a lot of things that the challenges that Newburyport's dealing with around housing. Apart from this, which is again an incredible story that we'd love to do something about, but we've had so many other housing issues on top of that. And I was down in Brockton yesterday at our first kind of in-person mayor's meeting for the Massachusetts Municipal Association, and a lot of communities are saying the same thing. Everything that Suzanne talked about. Seniors getting aging out of their communities and not being able to afford them. Rent. No longer rentals in town. We're susceptible to 40B developments because we don't have that stock of affordable housing. Which is why a lot of these developments. We're trying to get going here. Also, affordable housing isn't really affordable anymore either, which is a huge problem, So like, how do the people who work in our stores and our restaurants downtown, find a place here in Newburyport? So having all those challenges and then having this, wonderful opportunity come in on top of it, it's daunting, to be honest. But it's been so touching to see, what the city has, been able to rally around in such a short period of time. And I feel very fortunate that, my in-laws are on this call as well, so I can see their beautiful faces, but they've been very involved in this process, from the beginning. So I'm very fortunate that, my kids are now, in school, obviously with a lot of these children, but have, developed relationships very, really quickly with a lot of these kids, texting back and forth. Some of them got to go to my daughter's playoff basketball game a few weeks ago. We were able to be a part of the celebration a couple of weeks ago at St. Paul's, and my kids were part of the getting ready for that celebration and preparing the food, and it's really just been incredibly heartwarming. So to have that piece of it, and I think the big takeaway from that day is that they're part of our community now. They're going to our schools. I'm getting updates from our superintendent and some of the teachers that are working with the Afghans on a regular basis. But and from all accounts, they're thriving. They're really they're like little sponges, soaking up all that they can in our schools. They're playing with playing with my kids at recess, and going home. Youth soccer will be starting this in a couple of weeks, and they'll get to participate in that. So I mean, there's so many little great things happening for this family. So as far as what we can do as a city, I will tell you that we're already looking to hopefully get some flexibility around their current housing situation. So they were issued, all the churches were issued
Right.
temporary
6 months,
occupancy permits that will expire towards the end of June. So we've got calls into the state and the state fire marshal to see, do we have any flexibility there? Because I mean, I think if we knew that, then that would give us a little bit more time. And again, as you said at the beginning, which I really loved, our goal is to activate. If we can activate our community, that's when we start thinking out of the box, and maybe maybe something goes our way, and we can follow down a path that leads to some more permanent housing here in Newburyport. Because I think the general sense, and I can speak for myself and also the administration, is of course we would love to keep these people here. They're part of our community now. But it also fills in a really important need. We're not an incredibly diverse community, and I think these families could add so much to what we do here on an everyday basis here in Newburyport, which is, again, something that really should activate us even more, because we realize we have a really unique and special opportunity here to try to take advantage of.
Yes.
So just, a few of the things we're doing, we're having a lot of internal conversations, and what's nice about, the churches involved and Reverend Rebecca and Father Jared, we've been talking on a pretty regular basis every couple of weeks as a group, which is good because, we can get caught up and, compare notes, and because we're all talking to different people as we work through this. Suzanne and the Housing Trust is part of those conversations as well. So internally, working with my planning department here, we've been trying to identify, parcels of land that the city has that we might not be doing anything with, that might be, able to be used for something like that. So we're still working through that process to do it. It just seemed to coexist where we're doing a capital facilities plan for the city. So we were doing this anyway. So it was perfect timing that we could examine some of these plots of land. So there's maybe some possibility there, also, a lot of land that comes up for sale, in certain cases, the city has first refusal on that land. So there's actually a couple opportunities there that we're looking at that maybe could be used for something like this. We sat down as a group with, Habitat for Humanity the other day. And again, this doesn't really fit their mission, but they were, really interested in the idea and maybe partnering in maybe another way if something came up, as far as, again, that community effort to put some housing together on if we could acquire land somewhere. So those are a lot of the little things that we're doing. Go ahead, Paula. Did you have something you want to say?
Well, I do. I have a question, and that is, is there anything the city cannot do? There's many facets to this in terms of finding housing, but are your hands tied in certain areas, or can you jump into this whole arena and look for places, potentially buy them as a city, or are there places where it has to be private sector?
Yeah, I actually probably let Suzanne talk to that before me. I do think there's some fair housing restraints that prevent us from doing some of that. So it would have to be a unique situation, for the city to take a lead role in that. I know someone in the chat mentioned the Brown School. We're going through that process with the Brown School. I've always said, and I've targeted the Brown School for senior affordable housing, but they're just forming the ad hoc for that building now, and there's just a lot of hoops to jump through for the Brown School. And I'm glad we're heading down a path, but I think that's a longer path to go down.
Timing seems to be a big issue, because if their time is up at the churches and we don't have housing for them,
right,
what happens then? I guess Anca could speak to that potentially, but Mayor Sean, are you optimistic that we can make this work in our community? Long-term, short-term?
Yeah, no, I'm an optimist. So, I'm hoping there's a happy ending at the end of this story. So, I do think it's just a matter of continuing to activate people, continuing to broaden our reach out to different people who might have different ideas or different resources. I think we're so lucky in Newburyport that we do have so much expertise and resource at our fingertips, but it's just continually activating them and trying to get creative around some of these solutions. So, Yeah, I'm encouraged. I mean, I think it's a great story. I mean, again, now I'm personally invested, again, with my,
I love your children, getting to know them. That's
oh, it's
fantastic.
so great. It's so great. It's been really neat. But that's kids too. I mean, it's just like, the language difficulties, they figure it out, and it's about having fun and get to know each other, and they're all going through the same kind of life experiences, and now they get to, be in school every day. I've actually, been able to spend some time with some of the younger children as well. So I've done a few like mystery reader stints up at the schools, but been in some of these classrooms, and the kids are great, and the kids have really welcomed them in too. So I mean, it's just nice.
They could be our leaders, our mentors, these children, because they're already in relationship, which is how we sort of started with this with Reverend Rebecca. So
yeah.
So we're going to move now to a time of questions, and I thank each and every speaker so very much. Please stick around so that we can turn this over to Karen Trowbridge for the Q&A.
All right. Yeah, we have a couple of good questions. Just to touch on, Mayor Reardon just touched on this, but this is sort of a good way to think of it. Is there a way for the city to establish policies or incentives to influence the community and landlords to make it financially possible for families to stay?
Yeah, that's a good question. I'm not sure offhand. I don't know if Suzanne has run into that at all, but
yeah, we have, as Paula mentioned earlier, a rental assistance program that these families they're Newburyporters, right? They could qualify for this rental assistance. I'm not sure, that's a good question, and something that I would prefer to take offline and with our housing group and think about incentives. It could be this, obviously any kind of cash subsidies that would help with rental to get to where they need to be to keep their rental property going. So
yeah, it's such a unique situation from where they're coming from too. So I mean, I think a lot of these things are policies that are getting generated right now because of this type of thing. So it's almost like it hasn't caught up to what we're trying to do too. So I mean, again,
and I will. Oh, sorry, Sean. No, I just want to, let you know that the city, the housing trust, we do a housing production plan every 5 years, and ours is about to expire. So we are in the process of starting that work again. And it's so funny because 5 years ago, when we did our housing production plan, this wasn't even we didn't even think about this, right? As a need. And so here we are. So this is all of that work, it takes, unfortunately, we don't have the kind of, this is more emergent and urgent, but I think we're going to start to come along. And as I said, as Roof Overhead, kind of building in a program that would speak to this, to humanitarian efforts here in Newburyport, but all of it takes time, so.
And it's we can take some of this offline too, and we can follow up. So no worries. But Karen, continue, please.
Yes, Suzanne, you just mentioned Roof Overhead again, and there was kind of two questions related to that. So, what makes a property a good candidate for Roof Overhead? And similarly, are there zoning issues that specify how many bedrooms a large family has to live in? Because that seems like a related issue.
Yeah, so for roof, it's really the right property at the right price. We can't overpay. We're not swimming in cash, so we look for at least a two bedroom units. We would love to get a 3 or a 4. Those are just really, really hard to find. And it just needs to be feasible for the organization. As far as maximum number of people in a unit, this really depends on the landlord. It depends on the housing subsidy. There are certain subsidies that will not allow for even a brother and a sister to sleep in the same room, right? So there's a lot of regulation. We can go on about this for days. And then there's lead, right? There's a lead issue. We have older housing stock here in Newburyport. So even if we got the perfect apartment or home for a family, you know, lead is an issue. We need to do a lead abatement, you know, so there's just, it's very, very complicated, not insurmountable, but complicated.
Yeah, good question.
Yeah, somebody also asked, have we explored grants from major foundations? And I don't know if this is related, but have we reached out to Essentia, which is a national organization that helps find housing?
Who would like to take that on how about Anca? Is that something that is a question for her?
I am actually not aware of the organization that you're talking about. Essentia, never heard of it.
Wow.
Do you know about exploring grants from major foundations? Because that's sort of a different avenue.
Right, we do.
I can just tell you, sorry, I was just gonna say on the.
Go ahead, no.
No, I was just gonna say on the city side, I mean, I will say our grant developer, you know, is always looking for those types of things. So, I mean, we've targeted that, you know, we haven't come up with anything yet as far as grants, but, you know, we have our person in the city, you know, looking for those things.
Right, and what I want to mention is that actually the Massachusetts state came up with a lot of money for the Afghan population, and we will be using it for housing. So each family is entitled to get $2,250 per person. It's a one-time grant, but the big families will get around, you know, $25,000 towards housing.
Mhm. Perfect. Let's see, are there any other questions in the chat, Karen?
Yeah, somebody suggested, is there a way to put families in with single seniors who can't afford to stay in their homes? I mean, that would have to be on a case-by-case basis, but it's an interesting thought.
Suzanne, you're still here? You want to turn your mic on? Great.
No, I was gonna say, I'm so sorry, I have to drop, and I'm just at time and I need to run out, and I apologize. So
That's
if you
clear. Thank you.
anything, please, I'd love to continue the conversation. If anybody would like to reach out to me, Paula has my info.
Absolutely. And we will somehow figure out how to keep this conversation going, because we are at the end of our time very soon also. Yes, there's a recording available. We recorded it tonight. Let's see. What
And
else?
Barb Cullen is here. Somebody said there's a realtor here. I know Barb Cullen is here. Maybe she would like, I don't know if she would like to say something about, has anything to add to this?
I don't see her on my screen.
Barb, are you here?
She's probably muted.
Yvonne, you have a question?
Well, I can add something. I own a 3-family in Haverhill, and I am renting to somebody who has a young child, but it's very hard to find landlords that will rent to people with children because of the lead laws. I mean,
Yes.
they won't even interview families with children. I'm de-leaded, but my tenant's having some trouble paying, but I know that if I evict him, he's going to have a hell of a time finding a place to live.
Yeah, true. Thank you, Yvonne.
So it's a real problem.
Yeah. I just want to jump in just so people know. So if you did have a property or something or knew of something, but there might be lead issues, the lead laws are for 6 and under. One of the family's youngest is 7. So that's one thing. And it wouldn't, you know.
So it wouldn't affect that, yeah.
Effects, yeah. But also these can have to be a percentage of some of the money we've raised. Look, this person's having difficulty can't rent to anyone with kids or something because the lead laws. Well, maybe we can do a lead abatement and then, you know, the house with the money that we've raised, and that's a super win-win for them, you know, as long as
absolutely.
You know, there's so don't be scared off if there's hindrances like that. We might be able to create ways to make sense of it.
So I think we have time for one more comment, and I recognize that somebody said they actually had room.
Yeah, I was just looking at that. Someone said they live in a 4-bedroom house. Can they offer 2 of the bedrooms with a full bathroom? Which I'm sure there's a lot of people in that situation. So it'd be great to know if that's something that's workable.
Well, I'm unmuted. I can just say, I mean, it's one that's really fantastic. Thanks for offering that. I think something like that could certainly be maybe an extended, more, if we needed more time with temporary housing, like couldn't get
Yeah.
extensions with the church, like, you know, from the 6-month rule in the churches and needed to transition to things, you know, to something like that, that could actually be very useful. And then just to say, but yeah, but not sure what happened, obviously would be in discussion with the families as well as what they were comfortable with. But can we, Peg, are you gonna give, sorry, Peg, as in the Peg Center.
Sorry,
Paula,
I
are
am
you gonna just name me with the whole thing? Are you
Good.
gonna have our contact info for like myself, Reverend Rebecca, and
Yes,
Reverend Chris Nye, at least for, if you could contact one of us three with, is I think the way we've done it before, and like, you know, things we put in the paper and stuff, is contacting one of the three clergy, you know, about potential properties is probably the best.
anything that we find. So that's sort of our takeaway from tonight for everybody is eyes and ears open, questions asked. If you see an empty home, inquire. If you know of an apartment or a landlord, tell these folks about that. The Huddle will post contact information. We usually do a follow-up email as well. We're deeply appreciative of the 5 speakers here tonight. And really, because you've given us this opportunity to grow as a city, and that's what I'm so excited about. And I believe that we can make this happen. I really believe that, as she stomps her foot. So thank you, everybody. Thank you, Mayor Sean. I know how busy you are. Thank you, Suzanne, who left, Father Jared, Reverend Rebecca, and of course, Anca Moraru, for all that you do. And we'll talk to you very soon. Thank
Paula?
you.
Can I
Yes.
just have 2 minutes?
Oh, yes, that's 2 minutes. I'm sorry. We have one more thing for you, so don't leave yet. And I just want to say that if anybody is interested in volunteer positions at the Huddle, please contact me. My information is everywhere. And that donations can be made through PayPal. Again, contact me. To the PEG Center. You can mark them for the Afghans if you want it directly to go there. And Maria is going to just tell us about the Huddle does a lot of collections and drives, and we're in the middle of one now. So she's going to very quickly tell us about that.
Yes, hi, everyone. Talk about remarkable efforts. I just want to give an update on what's happening with the March collection drive, all about women. We were collecting sanitary pads. This is the total. I don't know if you can see it. 5,197 pads have been collected. So I just got another 176 right here. This group is amazing. A shout out to everyone, plus $600 in donations. I also want to say special thanks to Debbie Hart Klein, who did the lead on this, Peg Brown, who is amazing and collected every day at the synagogue, as well as rallying all her friends and neighbors. And a special thanks to Julie Cook, who always makes our flyers look amazing, even better each one. The one thing I want to just say is that there is a website that you can learn all about period poverty. It really is a real thing. The website is period.org. In Massachusetts alone, 56% of school nurses have students missing from school. 25% of school nurses and shelters don't have supplies, adequate supplies. And it would cost a woman and a teen $12 to $13 a month to cover their needs for that month. And it risks their health. And they have to cut corners somewhere if they're choosing between food and personal care items. And these are, necessities. These are every month for many, many, many decades, many moons.
Well, it was so great because Maria and I actually sat down and we figured out how many, just in the Afghan families, how many menstruating women there might be, how many pads they might need a month and a year, because we want to give each Afghan woman a year's supply so she doesn't have to worry about it. So that's our goal. And thank you for helping us get there, really. Introduce offer reusable. Yes, we would, Kristen. So I just want to say thank you to everybody and enjoy your night. And there's more on this subject always. So thanks. Thank you.
Thanks,
Thank you.
everyone.
Thank
Thank you,
Paula.
everyone.
Mayor Sean, thank you, everybody. Thanks, Reverend Rebecca. Father
Paula.
Jared.
Thank you, Paula.
Good to see you tonight. Thanks for being here.
Thank you.
Good night.
Wonderful. Good night.
Wonderful, wonderful. Paula.
More later, right? We got lots of work to do.
Certainly do. Wonderful
I
work.
do, I like that. I like having work to do.